This title is harsh. 2020 has been a pretty good year for BLs. None of the shows I'm talking about today are awful. I'm using the word worst very loosely. I simply didn't enjoy these as much as others from this year. But by no means are they bad. Except for one. I truly hated one of the ones on this list, and when I get to it I'll explain why. But as for the rest, they were good. Just not phenomenal in my opinion. I'll discuss the aspects I enjoyed of each drama as well as what ultimately led to them being in this video. If some of these shows are your favorites, that's great. I'm not trying to change your opinion. I'm just sharing mine. So without further ado, let me upset some stands. This is the one I said I hated. Maybe hate's a strong word. It's not terrible, but I don't think it's as good as the comments make it out to be. This BL is about Mock, who goes to this beautiful hotel in the mountains to escape his feelings. At this hotel he meets a bartender named Bay, and a relationship blossoms from Bay helping Mock overcome his concerns. The premise is cute, but I didn't like the delivery. The main thing that put me off this mini-series is this scene in episode 2 and 3. You can call me overdramatic, but it really bothered me. Mock seems to have done something very serious at the end of episode 2. They leave you on this terrifying cliffhanger, only to find out he faked it in the next episode. He said, and I quote, "I just wanted to know if someone would care about me," and proceeds to joke about it, asking, "Did you really think I would do something like that?" The whole thing rubbed me the wrong way. And the overdramatized pills all over the floor. This scene is horrible. The series consists of 4 episodes and they are an average of 10 to 15 minutes long. So this little scene feels a lot more significant than it probably was. But to be honest, whenever I think about the moment, this is the only thing that pops into my head. And because of how much I hated this scene, it makes me associate that hatred with the series as a whole. It's a very simple script. Not much happens. Sometimes that can be a good thing, but this led to me feeling no attachment to the couple. I finished the last episode content, but not because they wrapped it up well, but because there wasn't anything I was interested in enough to want more. I was shocked to see how many people seem to love this. When I dislike a BL this much, I usually have people around me that agree, but I have yet to talk to anyone that didn't love the moment. That makes me a bit nervous to post this, but whatever. It's just a show. I didn't watch the moment since yet, so I don't know if that will change my opinion at all. But for now it's still one of my least favorite shows released this year. Let me preface this review by saying, I am aware this series is based on novels, as majority of BLs are, and when you're trying to cram a whole book into 4 short episodes, it's understandable that some things aren't as picture perfect as I would like. It will inevitably feel rushed. However, I do think there was better ways to summarize the novels. Tossera love mechanics and This Is Love Story all struggled with this. The writers did a poor job of choosing what scenes to adapt. The timelines between scenes were not always easy to understand. It almost felt as if they were picking scenes they thought would look good individually, but not taking into account the things that happened in between. That made me, as a viewer who had not read the novels, confused at times and desperate for more details. Since all 3 had this issue, I wanted to say that as a general review, but now I'll break down my thoughts on each couple's section. Let's start with Tossera. There were actually quite a few scenes I thoroughly enjoyed. Some of the dialogue between these two was gold, but of course there was some things I didn't like. Most of my problems with Tossera lie with Gun. I was constantly finding myself confused about who he is supposed to be. Everyone and their mother keeps saying how charming he is, and because of how often this is mentioned, I expected him to act that way. I wanted to see this confidence people were talking about, but he doesn't use the charisma that this character is apparently supposed to have. He comes off as very gentle and soft. I'm not convinced of the persona his classmates are talking about, and some of his lines are so cringy. I'm sorry, but I could barely get through the confession scene. It literally hurt to watch. I don't necessarily blame Win for this though. I heard he got this role right before they started filming, so he probably didn't have the proper time to connect to this character. I can kinda see that. In later episodes, even though he only appears for a few seconds at a time, his acting noticeably improved. That could be him working on his skills as an actor, but it could also be him settling into the character more. The chemistry between Gun and Bar in Tossera was not convincing. It was hit or miss. Some scenes had pretty good chemistry but others were really lacking. This could also be due to the actors not having enough time to get to know each other. Because again, their scenes in Love Mechanics and Love Story are better. Maybe it's because they aren't the focus, but I choose to believe it's because at that point they had gotten more comfortable in their roles. Now acting aside, Gun's behavior is a little concerning. That pushy stalkerish personality can be found in a lot of BLs unfortunately. I have and always will hate that plot. It's uncomfortable and unattractive to see. I don't see myself wanting to rewatch this one. There isn't anything extra special about Tossera. It's fine but the story is a little dry. Moving on to Love Mechanics, I was turned off of V and Mark from the beginning because of the opening scene, especially after I found out about the novel version. You can't start with and expect me to fully support the couple, but I eventually watched the rest of Love Mechanics and if I ignored the first 5 minutes it wasn't bad. The acting is what made this the best out of the three. The emotions that were poured into these characters is unmatched. War, the actor who played Mark, is such an incredible actor. He was fantastic. Love Mechanics had the most complex storyline which ultimately made it the most interesting to watch. I love and hate this section for the same exact reason. V's character, his behavior frustrated me to no end. He annoyed me so much that I didn't even want him with Mark. But him being a messy character is what made Mechanics so interesting. It added depth that Tossera and Love Story didn't have. But his lack of self-awareness is infuriating. He cried about missing Mark throughout that month Mark was avoiding him. But then he finally gets a chance to talk to him. And he doesn't even apologize. Not once does the words "I'm sorry" come out of his mouth in this scene. He does in the novel but I don't even care. I just hate V. As I said, the main thing that made me attached to Love Mechanics more than the other two was War's acting. He expressed his pain so well. Not through his words but through his eyes. That takes so much talent in the actor and War pulled it off flawlessly. My heart sank looking at him. He would smile but his eyes showed how hurt he was. He's brilliant. War saved an of love for me. Let's end with the worst installment. This is Love Story. I feel like I'm the only person who doesn't like the fact that a college student is going after a high schooler. No one seems to care about that when they review this series. It makes me uncomfortable. The age difference is one thing but the way they both act makes it worse. Prerem is portrayed as such a sweet and innocent boy. It makes him appear much younger than a senior in high school. And seeing him paired with someone who is what, 3 or 4 years older than him, it's uncomfortable. They didn't do a good job of making them seem like they had anything in common. They didn't even seem like they were on the same maturity level. The age difference was so clear. That is my biggest reason for not liking This Is Love Story. There is also a heavy social media presence in this one compared to the others. That's most likely because of the pandemic and I'm proud of the cast and crew for working hard to still produce this for us. But a part of me is disappointed because of the lack of face-to-face conversation. But at the same time I don't like this couple and seeing them together more often probably wouldn't have made me like them any better. The actor who played Prerem and Pralak impressed me. Benz had to play both parts and I think he did well considering. He did a good job distinguishing the twins. And just to update since he's my least favorite character in the whole thing. V was actually watchable in Love Story. That doesn't erase the things he did that make me hate him. But he didn't make me want to punch him every 3 seconds in this one. I guess that's a good thing. I had such high expectations for this series, and when it started I had even higher expectations. The first few episodes were so good and seemed like it was going to be one of my favorite BLs. But somewhere it started to go downhill. It's probably majorly due to the virus. I know they had to change a lot of things in order to wrap up the ending, but that unfortunately led to me losing interest in whyru and feeling unsatisfied with the series. I'm not entirely sure what the plot of the show was. The end half has such lackluster episodes, which is due to the pandemic and they can't help that. But nonetheless I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. Cypher and Zorn are my favorite ship in the series and I was so desperate to see more of them. I'm not upset that they focus so heavily on Fighter and Tutor, but they had so much screen time that it made the other characters suffer. They tried to stuff so many couples into this series only to give them close to no development. The side characters were basically unnecessary since they didn't do much of anything. I think they were reaching for the sky with having that many characters. It's impossible to give them all a well-established storyline. I feel bad for the others. Zorn and Fighter Tutor don't seem to be in the same universe at times. I would always forget they attend the same university, and Zorn and Tutor are supposed to be best friends, but we rarely saw them interact after the first episode. The few conversations they had at the end made me confused, and then I was like, oh yeah, they're friends. Because the show did a poor job of establishing their friendship throughout the whole thing. The editing and directing was kinda all over the place. The watching experience wasn't as enjoyable as it could have been. The use of some sounds for comedic effect was fine and even made me smile. But overall they definitely overused them. Every few seconds there was random sound effects piled on top of each other. If anything, it made some scenes annoying rather than funny. The most frustrating thing about whyru for me is how much potential it had. It has such an incredible cast and the plot seemed so promising at first, but it didn't turn out the way I hoped. The OST however is so iconic. I still listen to it daily, literally the best soundtrack ever. Out of all the dramas in this video, whyru is probably the one I enjoyed the most, but we got some really great BLs this year and whyru stands out as one of my least favorites. That's all for today. There are some other BLs from this year that I haven't heard the best things about, but unfortunately I haven't seen them myself yet. I will be doing a ranking BLs of 2020 video in December. I'll be sure to check out those shows before then so I can include my thoughts there. There's still more BLs to come out before the year ends, so more could end up being in my worst list. So far A Chance to Love seems like it will creep its way into this list too. Anyways, let me know what you think of the shows I mentioned and what your personal least favorites are. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye my loves.
รายการต่อไปนี้รายการต่อไปนี้รายการต่อไปนี้
ไอสารเลว
รายการต่อไปนี้
พี่ดีน
รายการต่อไปนี้
นี่
รายการต่อไปนี้